Hey guys, what's up? I hope you had a amazing Christmas. I had a quite average one, though I did get something Evil Dead related, so I'll probably share that another time. But for now, I've decided that I'm going to be generous and maybe, I guess, to celebrate my 2 years on YouTube, I am holding my very first contest. So this box, what's in this box is the prize. And to enter, it's very simple. All I ask is a video response explaining how you first saw the Evil Dead movies, which one you saw first, how old were you, what was your experience like, what impression did it hold on you, and how has it changed maybe possibly your view of movies today, etc., etc., etc. I've decided to do this contest because I had this stuff. I knew I wanted to do this contest for a while, and this is what I wanted to give away, what's in this box. But also, as an Evil Dead fan myself, I like to go around and try to find other videos that people post, and mostly it's like people will show off what DVDs they have, or a custom figure, or it's a specific figure they review, or it's a review of the movie, but not necessarily something that I see a lot maybe on TV and special features of DVDs is when filmmakers share their experience of when they first saw the movie. And that's something that struck me in the Land of the Deadites documentary that I showed about 2 videos back. So I thought it would be interesting to hold this as a contest. I'm hoping to get at least 10 submissions. The way it's going to work, it's not going to be a draw. I'm going to pick my favorite one. And so that's about it for the contest, but I'm going to show you guys real quick what's in here. Of course, if you're going to enter and not know what you're getting, you might get something you don't really want. So, obviously, there's a main attraction kind of, and then there's kind of like some bonus stuff. So I'll just show the bonus stuff right away. Comic books, some issues. This one's Ash Saves Obama. And this is one issue from the Ash versus the Army of Darkness versus the Classic Monsters series. So that's part of the bonus. Where's the other one? It's hidden in here somewhere. It's not something special. Anyway, I'll show this right away. This is a not 100% done model kit. Oh, there you go. Real quick, some Palisades Series 2 figures. Here's a Deadite, here's a Knight, so not a huge deal, but they come with it. This is a garage model kit. It's not an official model kit, it is an adaptation of the Screaming Ash model kit. It's already painted, it only needs to be cut and glued together, and it's pretty big. Just to give you an idea, and like underneath, the metal hand's there too, so it comes with a metal hand. So this is the prize. This is what I'd be shipping out if you win. And I thought, since maybe you guys may be interested, and just to give you an idea of what I expect in the video response, I'm going to share my experience of when I first saw the movies. So, start off real quick. First time I saw any of the movies, I was 15 years old, and I actually come from a Christian household, and my mom was very controlling of what kind of stuff we watched. Anything with sex in it, we weren't all watching, so a lot of the times horror movies were, off limits because of the sex, but if there was gore or violence, apparently, for some weird reason, it was okay. But when I was young, I didn't have much control over what I watched. But back in the day when we used to rent movies a lot, back when you rent VHS, we used to go to the independent movie rental store in town, because I come from a tiny town of less than 3,000 people, so it was an independent, tiny little, rental store. And I would always go to the horror section, and I'd always be fascinated with, like, the VHS, like, slips and move it to the other side, look at the back, read the synopsis, look at the pictures, and I was always fascinated with it, and I've always wanted to watch them, but it was never really allowed, and whenever we went to rent a movie, it was, what my sister wanted, which was, like, my sisters wanted to watch Disney movies and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, I watch Disney movies too, but you know. Then, when I was 15 years old, when we had satellite television, a whole bunch of brand new channels came to television, period, in Canada. We had a bunch of brand new channels that were brand new, and one of them was Scream, which was the horror, thriller, suspense channel. I live in Canada, and I think in the United States the channel's called Chiller, if you want to watch horror movies. I know FearNet used to be on TV anyway. But Scream, now, if you're Canadian, it's not called Scream anymore. They had changed the channel name. It's called Dusk. And they say they're trying to appeal to a female audience now with more supernatural programming. I think that's bullshit anyway. I was 15 years old, and I remember when that channel came, I was so excited. I'm like, oh man, horror movies on TV. I can watch them whenever now. And one of the first horror movies that played on there that I sat down and watched beginning to end was The Gate. And that movie was very special to me because I credit that film for being the movie that got me into horror movies for good, you know. I've always been fascinated with them, but I've never ever, you know, had a chance to really, really watch a horror film other than, you know, that one time I was a little kid and I was like really, really young, and I guess my parents were not around. I was watching Child's Play 2 on television. That scared the crap out of me. That's the only movie that ever successfully scared the crap out of me. But I was like 6 or something like that, and I had dolls in my room, so I guess that makes sense. But and it was also around the time of Freddy versus Jason, and they had a Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th marathon. So they had played every single movie. And I remember those were the movies that, like, I was interested in seeing the most because those are the ones that were like a whole row at the rental store were all of those movies, and they looked amazing, you know, the boxes and stuff, and I was like, oh, I gotta see those movies. But then Evil Dead 2 came on. I'm like, oh, that sounds like a cool name, Evil Dead, whatever. And I watched it, and I was floored with how much I loved that movie. I mean, to me, watching that film, even though I was 15 years old, you know, still not really young, but it was unlike anything I had ever seen before, and to me, it felt surreal. And nowadays, you know, when I watch it now, I'm a complete adult, and I watch horror movies like crazy all the time, but that movie had such an effect on me, not only because it was very different, and you gotta admit, the Evil Dead movies are unique in their own special way, but it was the first time I had watched a horror comedy, you know, a horror movie that had infused comedy in it, like before all those Nightmare on Elm Street movies came on, and I got a chance to watch those. And at the very end, I'm like, this is the best movie I've ever seen, and I loved it so much. So the next day, I went to school, and I was talking about it. I'm like, I saw this movie on Scream, it's so good, called Evil Dead 2. And my friend's like, oh, you should see Army of Darkness then. And I'm like, Army of Darkness, what's that? Well, that's the third movie in the trilogy. And I'm like, oh. So I didn't know about it. And then IFC was playing it, and the first time they played it, I was so angry because I missed it. But then they played it again, and I watched it, and before I watched it, I'm thinking, oh, this movie's going to be good, I know it. And I was thinking, though, it can't be as good as Evil Dead 2, there's no way, because I love that movie so much. And the one thing about Evil Dead 2 is that Scream played it a lot. And every time it played, I'm like, oh my god, Evil Dead 2 is on. And I remember my sister's always being, well, you've seen that movie already, why do you always watch it? But when Army of Darkness came on, I was thinking, oh, there's no way in hell it's going to be as good or better. And when I finished watching it, once again, I was completely floored with how much I loved it. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's such a good movie. And that movie, though, I credit for me, like, getting interested in Bruce Campbell. Like, the Evil Dead 2 movie, you know, it kind of follows Ash's character, and it felt like a standalone film to me because it was the only one I had seen, even though I know there was others. But then, after watching Army of Darkness, I'm like, oh, this Bruce Campbell, this guy's really awesome. And it wasn't until I was 18 years old that I had met a friend who owned Evil Dead 1, the first one, The Evil Dead, on DVD, and I was like, oh, finally, I get to see the first one. And I remember being very indifferent after I had watched it, because, as you guys know, that movie is very different than Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. It's not as comedy infused, and like I didn't know what to think at first, but then it grew on me, and then I ended up loving it just as much as the other two. So that's how I got introduced to the Evil Dead trilogy, and after that, I made it my business to own all 3 movies on DVD. I'm like, you know what? Why don't I have the movies? I just get all the movies, and that movie, the first one I owned, was the first one because I just ended up taking the movie off my friend's hands. So it was like the THX regular Anchor Bay edition. I have replaced it ever since. That movie is now with my sister. She owns that one. And then my collecting, just real quick, I guess my collecting obsession is a little bit of a different story. When I turned 19, my friend bought me an action figure for my birthday, Shaun of the Dead, which is in my top 10. It's one of my favorite movies ever. I love Shaun of the Dead. And I remember being absolutely surprised because it was the first time anybody got me anything I actually really liked. People have a hard time shopping for me. So when I got that action figure, I'm like, oh, it's so cool. I loved it. And then I found out, there's Evil Dead action figures out there. I'm like, oh, I need those. And after I bought the NECA ones, it just snowballed from there. I'm like, oh, there's other ones. I need those ones too. And then I couldn't stop. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be a collector. I'm going to start collecting things. And I just did. And now I've owned about, oh my God, I'm not even going to think about it. I own a lot of things. That's all I'm going to say. But, that's my story. And this is the sort of an example of what I expect from a video response from you guys. It doesn't need to be really long, like my story, but short and sweet and to the point, maybe if you want. Make it long if you want. So submit a video response to this video. I will actually post the contest winner in 2 weeks after this. So get your video in. Let me know, how did you first see the movies? How old were you? What was your impression of the films? How did it get you into horror films? Or were you already into horror films? Let me know. And I hope you guys had a great Christmas. Have a happy new year. And I look forward to seeing your video responses. So, bye!